The Targaryens were of pure Balerion blood, dragon lords of ancient lineage. 12 years before the doom of Valyria, 114 BC, Aenar Targaryen sold his holdings in the Freehold and the lands of the Long Summer, and moved, with all his wives, wealth, slaves, dragons, siblings, kin, and children, to Dragonstone, a bleak island citadel beneath a smoking mountain in the narrow sea. At its apex, Valyria was the greatest city in the known world, the centre of civilization. The Targaryens were far from the most powerful of the Dragon Lords, and their rivals saw their flight to Dragonstone as an act of surrender, as cowardice. But Lord Aenar's maiden daughter, Daenys, known forever afterward as Daenys the Dreamer, had foreseen the destruction of Valyria by fire, and when the doom came, 12 years later, the Targaryens were the only Dragon Lords to survive.
In House of the Dragon, we find out something new that was never revealed in the books before. Helaena Targaryen also had the ability to have prophetic dreams. Throughout the season, we hear her predict events that only happen later on. So now we can officially give her the title, Helaena the Dreamer. But today our story is about dragons, and the dragon has 3 heads. The first head was none other than Balerion the Black Dread. Dragons are scaled, reptilian creatures. They have 4 limbs, 2 wings, which are used as forelegs like bats and pterosaurs, and 2 rear legs. George R.R. Martin's dragons thereby differ from the traditional depiction of dragons as 6-limbed creatures. Martin came to his decision because he was bothered by the fact that no animal in nature has ever evolved in such a way, i.e., 4 legs and 2 wings. Balerion's first dragon rider was Aegon Targaryen, the same Aegon who would be known as Aegon the Conqueror and Aegon the Dragon. He was born on Dragonstone. Aegon Targaryen had initially made his reputation by joining a grand alliance against Volantis, commanding his dragon Balerion, known as the Black Dread, to burn a Volantini fleet threatening the free city of Lys. But unlike his predecessors, Aegon showed more interest in Westeros.
When no dragon appeared, some may have thought that Aegon's threats had been hollow. But Aegon Targaryen took Balerion up high, through the clouds, up and up, until the dragon was no bigger than a fly upon the moon. Only then did he descend, well inside the castle walls. On wings as black as pitch, Balerion plunged through the night, and when the great towers of Harrenhal appeared beneath him, the dragon roared his fury and bathed them in black fire, shot through with swirls of red.
Already received the fealty of those minor knights and lords. Aegon's forces and the 2 kings' host came together on a plain south of the Blackwater Rush, with Mern and Lauren both fully confident in their superior forces. But the plains they fought on were dry, the grass parched and the wheat ripe for harvest, so Aegon and his sisters set the field alight with Dragonfyre. What followed was forever after, known as the Field of Fire. 4,000 men burned, and 1,000 more were killed in combat, including King Mern, and all the sons, brothers, uncles, grandsons, and cousins he had brought with him. House Gardner came to an abrupt and bloody end that day, and House Lannister only survived because King Loren abandoned the field when he knew the battle was lost. Balerion's second dragon rider was Maegor the Cruel, the only son Aegon the Conqueror had with his sister Visenya. Maegor's 14-year marriage to Lady Cerys still remained barren, so Maegor took a drastic step, marrying a second wife, Alice, daughter of Lucas Harroway, the new Lord of Harrenhal. This marriage was conducted in secret on Dragonstone, using a Valyrian rite officiated by the Dowager Queen Visenya. When King Aenys was informed of the marriage, the quarrel that followed was bitter. The High Septon himself, who denounced Maegor for the sin of bigamy. But Maegor was defiant. Given the choice to renounce Alice or go into exile across the narrow sea for 5 years, he chose the latter, taking Alice, Balerion, and the sword Blackfyre with him, settling in Pentos and leaving Cerys abandoned at King's Landing. The celebration over Maegor's recovery quickly turned to horror, however, as Maegor flew Balerion to the Hill of Rhaenys, setting the Sept of Remembrance alight as the warriors' sons were at their morning prayers. Those that fled the inferno were slain by Maegor's waiting soldiers. 700 men died that day, and the Order of the Warrior's Sons would never again rise to its former glory. Balerion's third dragon rider was quite unusual. Princess Aeria Targaryen, one of the twin daughters that Rhaena Targaryen had with her brother Aegon the Uncrowned. As the year drew to a close, Queen Rhaena arrived in King's Landing on Dreamfyre, where she informed Jaehaerys and Alysanne that Aeria Hay,
whatever her plans, they did not matter. It is one thing to leap upon a dragon, and quite another to bend him to your will, particularly a beast as old and fierce as the Black Dread. From the very start we have asked, where did Aeria take Balerion? We should have been asking, where did Balerion take Aeria? Only one answer makes sense. He is mayhaps the only living creature in the world that knew Valyria before the doom. And that is where he took the poor doomed child clinging to his back. What befell her on Valyria, I cannot surmise. Judging from the condition in which she returned to us, I do not even care to contemplate it. Valyria is accursed, all men agree, and even the boldest sailor steers well clear of its smoking bones. But we would be mistaken to believe that nothing lives there now. The things we found inside Aeria Targaryen live there now, I would submit. Not long thereafter, Balerion became the first of the Targaryen dragons to be housed in the Dragon Pit.
Balerion's fourth and final dragon rider was someone we're all very familiar with, King Viserys Targaryen, the young king. In 93 AC, at just 16 years old, Prince Viserys became a dragon rider. In 93 AC, at the age of 16 years old, Prince Viserys became a dragon rider, claiming Balerion for himself. The huge dragon was no longer growing, was often sleepy, and seemed to no longer have the strength for long flights. No one knew that less than a year later, Balerion would be dead, dying of the rarest of all causes for a dragon, old age. I also want to take a moment to appreciate a secret Easter egg about Balerion. King Tommen Baratheon's cat, the last great beast to bear the name, Balerion. And a special shout-out to Joshua Cairo, whose art appears in many official A Song of Ice and Fire books and calendars. Now, we can add our first dragon to our dragon chart, Balerion the Black Dread, in the Dead Dragon category. The second dragon's history will be, unfortunately, a shorter one. The artwork you see here of Meraxes is featured in the 2024 A Song of Ice and Fire calendar and is the first ever official color art of Meraxes. As a dragon ages, its scales thicken and grow harder, affording even protection, leaving dragons nearly immune to fire, although they can still be wounded by dragon flame. Meraxes' first and only dragon rider was Rhaenys, Aegon's younger sister. We don't know much about Rhaenys, since her life was short-lived, but Aegon the Conqueror was never the same following her passing.
Aegon had two true-born siblings, an elder sister, Visenya, and a younger sister, Rhaenys. It had long been the custom amongst the dragon lords of Valyria to wed brother to sister, to keep the bloodlines pure, but Aegon took both his sisters to bride. By tradition, he would have been expected to wed only his older sister, Visenya. The inclusion of Rhaenys as a second wife was unusual, though not without precedent. It was said by some that Aegon wed Visenya out of duty and Rhaenys out of desire.
The battle that followed, called the Last Storm, took place during increasingly heavy rainfall. Argilac, however, continued the attack, trusting in his numbers, for he had nearly twice the men and almost 4 times the knights and horses. The battle raged into night, with Argilac personally leading 3 charges against Orys Baratheon's positions and gaining ground each time. But at the 4th charge on the final hill, Argilac's forces met Rhaenys and Meraxes on the ground, where the rain proved incapable of stopping a dragon's fires.
Finally, the Queen's flight took her to Sunspear, the ancient seat of House Martell, where she found the Princess of Dawn waiting in her abandoned castle. Meria Martell was 80 years of age, the maesters tell us, and had ruled the Dornish men for 60 of those years. She was very fat, blind, and almost bald, her skin sallow and sagging. Argilac the Arrogant had named her the Yellow Toad of Dawn, but neither age nor blindness had dulled her wits. "I will not fight you," Princess Meria told Rhaenys, "nor will I kneel to you. Dawn has no king. Tell your brother that." "I shall," Rhaenys replied, "but we will come again, Princess, and the next time we shall come with fire and blood. Once again, the king unleashed his dragons against dawn. Aegon himself fell upon Skyreach, vowing to make the Fowler seat a second Harrenhal. Visenya and Vhagar brought fire and blood to Starfall, and Rhaenys and Meraxes returned once more to the Hellholt, where tragedy struck. The Targaryen dragons, bred and trained to battle, had flown through storms of spears and arrows on many occasions, and suffered little harm. The scales of a full-grown dragon were harder than steel, and even those arrows that struck home seldom penetrated enough to do more than enrage the great beasts. But as Meraxes banked above the Hellholt, a defender atop the castle's highest tower triggered a scorpion, and a yard-long iron bolt caught the queen's dragon in the right eye. Meraxes did not die at once, but came crashing to earth in mortal agony, destroying the tower and a large section of the Hellholt's curtain wall in her death throes. Whether Rhaenys Targaryen outlived her dragon remains a matter of dispute. Some say that she lost her seat and fell to her death, others that she was crushed beneath Meraxes in the castle yard.
This scene of Meraxes' death was also shown in the opening intro of the first season of House of the Dragon, which I covered in my video breaking down the intro. Let's add Meraxes to our dragon guide in the Dead Dragon category. Lucky number 3, Vhagar. In this beautiful depiction from the Season 1 finale from an artist I could not find, and thus, unfortunately, cannot credit. Dragons are intelligent creatures which can be trained to serve as battle mounts and understand vocal commands. They are said to be capricious in nature and have to be trained to keep them from laying waste to everything around them. Vhagar's first dragon rider was none other than Dowager Queen Visenya Targaryen. All 3 siblings showed themselves as dragon lords before they got married. Vhagar and Meraxes were younger and hatched on Dragonstone. Visenya took flight on Vhagar to the Val of Arryn and the Eyrie, where Queen Shara and her son, King Ronal, had sought refuge. The castle high on the Giant's Lance proved no barrier to a dragon, however, and Visenya landed unopposed in the castle's courtyard. By the time Shara and her knights arrived, Visenya had the boy King Ronal on her knee, begging to fly on her dragon. Shara was forced to submit while her son got his promised flight, circling the Eyrie 3 times on Vhagar's back, taking off as a little king and landing as a little lord. Vhagar's second dragon rider was Balon the Brave Targaryen, the father of King Viserys and Prince Daemon. Later that evening, as Aemon was walking the camp with Lord Cameron, disaster struck. A pair of Myrish scouts had found the camp thanks to Caraxes' flame, and one of them, seeing 2 lords walking unguarded, took aim at Lord Cameron of Tarth, and the bolt instead pierced Prince Aemon's throat. The prince drowned in his blood, dead at the age of 37. Prince Balon and Vhagar rained fire upon the Myrish ships in vengeance. The third dragon rider is the first character from the TV show in this video, Laena Velaryon. In this clip, we see a young Laena inquire about the rumored location of Vhagar, who hadn't been ridden by anyone in decades. Just as Lord Corlys loved to sail, Laena loved to fly and claimed mighty Vhagar, the oldest and largest Targaryen dragon since Balerion's passing in 94 AC. Vhagar's 4th and current dragon rider is Aemond One-Eye, also called Aemon the Kinslayer, the middle son of Alicent Hightower and King Viserys. Even for a Targaryen, there are always dangers in approaching a dragon, especially an old, bad-tempered one who recently lost her rider. What started as a scuffle soon turned darker as Aemond mocked Rhaenyra's sons to their faces, calling them the Strongs. In a rage, Jace charged at Aemond, while Luke took a dagger from his belt and slashed at Aemond's face, taking out his right eye. Prince Lucerys was to meet with a quite different fate. For when he arrived at Storm's End on Arrax, he found Prince Aemond already in residence, the very prince whose eye he had removed 6 years earlier.
It was bad weather for flying, even for a dragon, and Arrax was struggling to stay aloft when Prince Aemond mounted Vhagar and went after him. Had the sky been calm, Prince Lucerys might have been able to outfly his pursuer, for Arrax was younger and swifter. But the day was as black as Prince Aemond's heart, says Mushroom, and so it came to pass that the dragons met above Shipbreaker Bay. Watchers on the castle walls saw distant blasts of flame, and heard a shriek cut the thunder, Then the two beasts were locked together, lightning crackling around them. Vhagar was 5 times the size of her foe, the hardened survivor of 100 battles. If there was a fight, it could not have lasted long. Arrax fell, broken, to be swallowed by the storm-lashed waters of the bay, his head and neck washed up beneath the cliffs below Storm's End 3 days later, to make a feast for crabs and seagulls.
We can now add Vhagar to the dragon chart, not in the dead category, but as the oldest living dragon on Team Green. Dragon number 4, Quicksilver. If it has enough food and freedom, a dragon never stops growing. Dragons given such freedom can reach a span width of 20 feet within a year and a half. Quicksilver's first dragon rider was Aenys Targaryen, the son that Aegon the Conqueror had with Rhaenys, and the second king to sit the Iron Throne.
Aenys loved to ride as well. His father gave him coursers, palfreys, and destriers, but his favourite mount was his dragon, Quicksilver.
Quicksilver's second dragon rider was Aenys' own son, Aegon the Uncrowned, whom he had with Alyssa Balerion, and that is when King Maegor and Balerion appeared. For the first time since the Doom, 2 dragon riders fought in the sky, but Quicksilver was no match for the Black Dread. Balerion ripped a wing off the younger, smaller dragon, sending it and its rider plummeting to their deaths. With Aegon fallen, his army collapsed. Over 2,000 were killed alongside Aegon the Uncrowned, and thus it is that Quicksilver joins the Dead Dragon Society. Number 5, the Mother of Dragons, Dreamfyre. Traditionally, Targaryen princes received a dragon's egg in their cradle, allowing the infants to bond with the dragons as soon as the eggs hatched. Dreamfyre's first dragon rider was none other than the great Rhaena Targaryen, another child of Aenys and Alyssa Valerion. She was known as the Queen in the West and the Queen in the East, the Black Bride. Princess Rhaena was 18 and Prince Aegon 15 when they were betrothed. The princess was a dragon rider, ranging widely throughout the realm on her dragon Dreamfyre. However, it soon became clear that the Lord of Casterly Rock had ulterior motives, for he and his lady wife began to show great interest in Dreamfyre's eggs. Rhaena had remained on Fair Isle since Aegon's death, under the protection of Lord Farman. And though she had sent her infant daughters Arya and Rhaella into hiding, Rhaena herself remained in the open because she would not leave Dreamfyre, and it was impossible to hide a dragon. At the Red Keep, Rhaena learned that she was to marry Maegor alongside 2 other women. The triple marriage took place on a warm spring day in the ward of the Red Keep, witnessed by the people of King's Landing, who took to calling the 3 widowed women the Black Brides. The king made sure to have the children of each of his new brides present to make sure they complied, because alas for Princess Rhaena, Queen Tiana had discovered the whereabouts of Arya and Rhaella and collected them. On Dragonstone, the tensions between Rhaena and Alyssa Farman came to a head when Alyssa left the island, and Westeros as well, with 3 stolen dragon eggs. In a rage, Rhaena did what she could to retrieve both Alyssa and the eggs, but the trail grew cold in Pentos. Alyssa Farman dreamed of building a ship to explore the Sunset Sea, and the dragon eggs were her way of realizing it. Her trail grew cold in part because she had taken a new name, Alice Westhill, and traveled on from Pentos to Braavos. There, she secured an audience with the Sea Lord of Braavos. He was glad to buy the dragon eggs. Alyssa Farman used the gold to build the Sun Chaser, the ship she had dreamed of for years. "I do not have these eggs, of course," the Sea Lord said. "You cannot prove elsewise. If I did have them, however, well, until they hatch, they are but stones. Would your king begrudge me 3 pretty stones?" Instead, he made him another offer. At the Sea Lord's urging, the Iron Bank of Braavos forgave the entire remaining principal of its loan to the Iron Throne. At a stroke, the crown's debt had been cut in half. "And all at the cost of 3 stones, Barth told the king. "The Sea Lord had best hope that they remained stones," J. Harris said. "If I should hear so much as a whisper of chickens, his palace will be the first to burn." Dreamfyre's second dragon rider was Helaena the Dreamer, daughter of Alicent Hightower and King Viserys. Prince Aegon was 13 and Princess Helaena was 11 when they both became dragon riders. Helaena now flew Dreamfyre. We can thus add Dreamfyre and Helaena to Team Green. Dragon number 6, Vermithor, the Bronze Fury. It is implied that the bonds of a dragon rider and their dragon may affect the dragon's mating habits. King Jaehaerys Targaryen's dragon Vermithor often coiled with his queen Alysanne Targaryen's Silverwing, even 5 decades after their riders' deaths. Vermithor's first dragon rider was King Jaehaerys, the Conciliator, who became known as the longest reigning Targaryen king, sitting on the throne for 55 long years. By this point in the Targaryen reign, enough dragon eggs were being produced that it became the custom to place an egg in the cradle of each newborn prince and princess. It was Princess Rhaena, legend says, who put a dragon's egg in Princess Alysanne's cradle, just as she had for Prince Jaehaerys 2 years earlier. After 4 years of hiding, we're back with their dragons, Vermithor and Silverwing. Over the course of his reign, the realm had prospered greatly. The populace of the 7 kingdoms, excluding Dorne, which still remained independent, had more than doubled, and the royal city of King's Landing had quadrupled. Jaehaerys had crafted laws and roads that knit the realm together. He had reconciled the faith with the Iron Throne, brought peace to the land, and secured the future succession. The 7 kingdoms wept to see his passing. What only became clear in hindsight was that Jaehaerys' eyes' peaceful reign had sown the seeds for the disaster that followed. In the first season of House of the Dragon, we briefly see Vermithor when Daemon Targaryen finds him in the Mountain of Dragonstone. Even though Vermithor was discovered by Daemon, he was still technically riderless by the end of Season 1, so we'll add him to the riderless category. Lucky number 7, Silverwing. It is said that dragons are fire-made flesh. Great heat emanates from dragons' bodies, to the point that they steam during cold nights. Silverwing's first and only dragon rider, so far, was good Queen Alysanne, who had 13 children with her brother Jaehaerys.
The unexpected arrival of Vermithor and Silverwing at Old Town brought thousands to the streets to point and stare. No word of their coming had been sent ahead, and there were many in the city who were frightened, wondering what this might portend. None, mayhaps, more than Septon Matteus, who turned pale when he was told. Jaehaerys brought down Vermithor on the wide marble plaza outside the Starry Sept. But it was his queen who made the city gasp when Silverwing alighted atop the high tower itself, the beating of her wings fanning the flames of its famous beacon.
In 58 AC, the king planned another progress, this time to visit the north. Jaehaerys sent his Kingsguard, servants, and retainers ahead of him by ship to White Harbour. He and Alysanne would follow on their dragons. While awaiting her husband, Alysanne decided to visit the Night's Watch on the wall. Her first glimpse of the wall was breathtaking, and she resolved to get a better view of it and the lands beyond on the back of her dragon, Silverwing.
The men of the Night's Watch were as thunderstruck by the Queen's dragon as the people of White Harbour had been, though the Queen herself noted that Silverwing does not like this wall. Though it was summer and the wall was weeping, the chill of the ice could still be felt whenever the wind blew, and every gust would make the dragon hiss and snap. Thrice I flew Silverwing high above Castle Black, and thrice I tried to take her north beyond the wall, Alysanne wrote to Jaehaerys. But every time she veered back south again and refused to go. Never before has she refused to take me where I wished to go. I laughed about it when I came down again, so the Black Brothers would not realize anything was amiss. But it troubled me then, and it troubles me still. I see no honour in any of this. I knew such things happened hundreds of years ago, I confess it, but I never dreamed that the custom endured so strongly to this day. Mayhaps I did not want to know. I closed my eyes, but that poor girl in Molestown opened them. The right of the first night. Your Grace, my lords, it is time we put an end to this. I beg you. I know when I am beaten. Very well. Let it be done. And so it came to pass that the second of what the small folk named Queen Alysanne's laws was enacted, the abolition of the Lord's ancient right to the first night. Henceforth it was decreed a bride's maidenhead would belong only to her husband, whether joined before a septon or a heart-tree. In his sister he had a queen even more beloved than he was. Good Queen Alysanne, the small folk called her, from Old Town to the wall.
And so Silverwing is added to the riderless category. Number 8, Caraxes the Bloodworm. Daemon Targaryen and his wife Laena Balerion often visited Dragonstone on their dragons Caraxes and Vhagar to fly with Rhaenyra Targaryen and Syrax, and during that period Syrax produced several clutches of eggs. The Bloodworm's first dragon rider was Aemon, the father of Rhaenys, the queen who never was. Prince Aemon went to the dragon pit and there became a dragon rider, taking a fierce young dragon called Caraxes for his own. The dragon keepers called Caraxes the Bloodworm because of his blood-red coloring. Aemon and Balin fell upon them from the clouds while they were still at sea. Though the Dornish fleet tried filling the air with arrows and bolts, killing a dragon in flight was easier said than done. Vermithor, Caraxes, and Vhagar unleashed their flames, and the 100 ships of the fleet went up in flame. The Fourth Dornish War ended that day, and would in later years be called the War of the 100 Candles, or Prince Morion's Madness. The Bloodworm's second dragon rider is everyone's favorite rogue prince, Daemon Targaryen, the Prince of the City. There isn't much to say about Daemon that wasn't already shown in House of the Dragon. Over time, Princess Rhaenyra became close friends with her good sister, Lady Laena, and spent more and more time with both Laena and Prince Daemon, flying to and fro between Driftmark and Dragonstone. During this period, Rhaenyra's dragon Syrax laid several clutches of eggs, doubtless the result of matings with Caraxes. After 8 dragons, we finally add the first dragon rider to Team Black, Daemon and Caraxes. The 9th dragon is another crimson beast, the Red Queen Meleys. Dragons believed to be female, e.g. Syrax, Dreamfyre, Tessarion, and Meleys, are referred to as a she-dragon or sometimes a queen. The Red Queen's first dragon rider was Alyssa Targaryen, who gave her brother Balon 2 strong heirs, Prince Viserys and Prince Daemon. Balon the Brave married his sister Alyssa. The two had been close all their lives, for Alyssa had followed him about from the time she could walk. Once married, she made haste to consummate her marriage, much to the amusement of the court. Soon after, though still but 15 years of age, she claimed the swift scarlet she-dragon Meleys for her own. In 77 AC, she gave birth to a son named Viserys. One of her first acts after Viserys was born was to strap him to her chest and then mount Meleys, taking her delighted infant on his very first flight. She did the same thing with her second son, Daemon, within a fortnight of his birth. The Red Queen's second dragon rider is Rhaenys Targaryen, the queen who never was, daughter of Aemon the Prince of Dragonstone and Jocelyn Baratheon.
"Only you could have won me away from the sea," he told the princess. "I came back from the ends of the earth for you." Rhaenys, at 6 and 10, was a fearless young beauty, and more than a match for her mariner. A dragon rider since the age of 13, she insisted upon arriving for the wedding on Meleys, the Red Queen, the magnificent scarlet she-dragon that had once borne her aunt Alyssa. "We can go back to the ends of the earth together," she promised Ser Corlys. "But I'll get there first, as I'll be flying."
Team Black gets another addition with Rhaenys and her dragon Meleys. To mark the halfway point at number 10, we celebrate the yellow she-dragon Syrax. Historians, like Septon Barth, Grand Maester Munkin, and Maester Tomax, disagree on the mating habits of dragons. Dragons lay large scaled eggs to reproduce, according to Archmaester Gildane, and agreed upon by Maester Yandel. The ability of a dragon to lay eggs is proof that said dragon is female. However, according to Barth and Maester Aemon, dragons have no fixed gender, but are now one and now the other, as changeable as flame. Syrax's first and only dragon rider is, of course, everyone's favorite princess, Queen Rhaenyra Targaryen. As the only living child of the king, the 6-year-old Rhaenyra was treasured and adored. She was a precocious and beautiful child, and swiftly became known as the realm's delight. She was bold as well, becoming a dragon rider at the age of 7 when she took to the sky on the equally young dragon she had named Syrax, after an old Valyrian goddess. Team Black gets its 3rd dragon rider in a row with Rhaenyra and Syrax. Number 11 is Moondancer, whom we've only briefly seen in the TV show. As dragons age, the fire they breathe becomes hotter and fiercer. Where a hatchling's flame can set straw aflame, the flames of older dragons, like Balerion and Vhagar in the fullness of their power, could melt steel and stone. Moondancer's dragon rider is Baela, who we see caring for Moondancer's egg in the show.
Baela's dragon, The slender, pale green Moondancer would soon be large enough to bear the girl upon her back, and though her sister Rhaena's egg had hatched a broken thing that died within hours of emerging from the egg, Syrax had recently produced another clutch.
Even if still a hatchling, Baela's Moondancer gets added to Team Black. Number 12 is perhaps the most beautiful dragon of them all, the pale, silvery gray dragon Seasmoke. Dragons which are locked up, e.g., the Targaryen dragons housed in the dragon pit in King's Landing, do not grow as large as dragons left free to fly as they wish. Seasmoke is currently riderless, but his first dragon rider was Lenor Balerion, who tragically died, yet lived. There isn't much to say about Seasmoke that wasn't already shown in the show, so let's move along and add Seasmoke to the riderless dragon society. Lucky number 13 for Sunfyre the Golden. Sunfyre's only dragon rider so far is King Aegon II, also known as Aegon the Elder, because Rhaenyra's son, also named Aegon, became known as Aegon the Younger. Dragon bones are black, due to their high iron content. The polished skulls of the Targaryen dragons look like glittering onyx, and their teeth look like curved daggers of black diamond.
Prince Aegon Targaryen was 13, Princess Helaena 11, Prince Aemond 10, and Prince Daeron 6. Both Aegon and Helaena were dragon riders. Helaena now flew Dreamfyre, the she-dragon who had once carried Rhaena, Maegor the Cruel's Black Bride, whilst her brother Aegon's young Sunfyre was said to be the most beautiful dragon ever seen upon the earth.
Aegon II and Sunfyre the Golden can now be added to Team Green. The next two sets of dragons will be trios, starting with the three princes of Queen Rhaenyra, Jacaerys, Lucerys, and Joffrey. Number 14, Vermax, whose color is never specified in the books, is depicted as having olive-green scales in the show. Number 15 is Arrax, whose death we witnessed at the end of the first season of House of the Dragon. King Viserys was delighted by his grandsons and did not heed the speculations. He decreed that each boy should have a dragon egg in his cradle. This was done, and each of the boys' dragons hatched. Jacaerys claimed Vermax, Lucerys claimed Arrax, and Joffrey claimed Tyraxes. Number 16 is Joffrey and Tyraxes, but we haven't seen anything about them in Season 1, so we can move along. Unfortunately, the three brothers will have to be separated and end up in different categories, with Arrax in the Dead Dragon Society, while Vermax and Tyraxes get to go in Team Black. Number 17, the Cannibal, number 18, Grey Ghost, and number 19, Sheep Stealer.
Dragonstone's 3 wild dragons were less easily claimed than those that had known previous riders, yet attempts were made upon them all the same. Sheep Stealer, a notably ugly mud-brown dragon hatched when the old king was still young, had a taste for mutton, swooping down on shepherds' flocks from Driftmark to the Wendwater. He seldom harmed the shepherds, unless they attempted to interfere with him, but had been known to devour the occasional sheepdog. Grey Ghost dwelt in a smoking vent, high on the eastern side of the Dragonmont, preferred fish, and was most oft glimpsed, flying low over the narrow sea, snatching prey from the waters. A pale grey-white beast, the colour of morning mist, he was a notably shy dragon, who avoided men and their works for years at a time. The largest and oldest of the wild dragons was the Cannibal, so named because he had been known to feed on the carcasses of dead dragons, and descend upon the hatcheries of Dragonstone to gorge himself on newborn hatchlings and eggs. Coal-black, with baleful green eyes, the Cannibal had made his lair on Dragonstone even before the coming of the Targaryens, some small folk claimed.
So we add 3 new dragons to the riderless category, which is now complete. Last but not least, the final dragon, number 20, Tessarion. Dragons are believed to be intrinsically tied to magic in the world. Since the death of the last dragon, it was said that summers grew shorter and the winters colder and crueler, while magical spells became less powerful. We haven't seen Tessarion in the show, and we haven't seen his dragon rider either, but he is still one of Alicent Hightower and King Viserys' children, Prince Daeron Targaryen, who was sent away to serve as a cupbearer in Oldtown during the events of Season 1 of House of the Dragon. And there it is, the final dragon is added, Tessarion to Team Green. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like these.